The cork popped from the champagne bottle with a sharp, high-pitched squeal, spiraling up into the morning sky. For a fleeting moment, it gleamed like a shooting star before falling back to earth, landing with a soft thud in my yard. A crowd of strangers, wearing expensive sunglasses and holding champagne flutes, cheered and clinked their glasses beneath a massive banner that stretched across the building in front of me. A building that was never supposed to be here, standing where my horses used to graze, had been transformed into a sprawling luxury resort. The new resort boasted pools, tennis courts, valet parking, everything that symbolized a world I no longer recognized. And there she was, Karen, the HOA president, laughing like she owned the place. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. How a group of power-hungry suburbanites managed to turn my quiet, peaceful land into a billionaire's playground. How? Instead of fighting them, I ended up letting them finish their job and then sold the whole mess right out from under them for billions. If you'd asked me a few months ago what I loved most about my life, I would have said the land. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just the land. My family's stretch of earth here in Pine Hollow County was more than soil and trees and water. It was a living, breathing thing. My grandfather had bought the original parcel back when the town was nothing more than a dusty road and a bait shop. Over the years, through floods, droughts, bad harvests, and good, it had stayed ours. Rolling pastures. A cluster of cottonwoods by the west fence line. A lazy creek winding its way through the middle like a silver thread stitching the whole world together. When my grandfather passed, the land skipped a generation, landing in my hands through a series of meticulously orchestrated paperwork filings. He trusted me to carry on what he started. I didn't just live here, I belonged here. For a while, it felt like the world had forgotten us out here in the best possible way. The days were slow, honest, and predictable, until they were not. The first letter came on a Wednesday. I almost missed it, buried between a seed catalog and a farm equipment flyer. It was embossed with a gold seal I didn't recognize, printed on thick, fancy paper that smelled like a department store perfume counter. Notice of Community Integration Initiative, it said at the top. Harmless enough words on their own. But the moment I started reading, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The newly expanded Willow Bend Homeowners Association was extending its boundaries. It said, to better maintain community standards and enhance the living experience for all property owners in the adjoining areas. The adjoining areas meaning me. I tossed the letter onto the kitchen table, trying to forget about it. People around here didn't take kindly to outsiders telling them what color to paint their barns or how often to mow their fields. Surely it was just a mistake, I thought. A wrong address. A formality. It was not a mistake. 2 weeks later, I found a plastic sign staked into the gravel driveway leading up to my house, flapping lazily in the breeze. Future site of Willow Bend Beautification Project Phase 1. No explanation. No permission asked. Just a bright blue logo and a website link that led nowhere. I yanked the sign out of the ground and threw it into the burn barrel, but it left a deep, uneasy feeling lodged in my chest. I started seeing more signs around the outskirts of the property. Little clusters of workers in reflective vests, poking at the earth with measuring rods and taking photos of nothing in particular. When I asked them what they were doing, they mumbled something about survey updates and public records compliance before packing up and leaving without so much as looking me in the eye. A month later, I got another letter. This one was colder, more official. Notice of minor zoning adjustment, it said. A quiet change to the town charter, allowing a reclassification from agricultural preserve to community enhancement zone. I read it 3 times before the meaning sank in. Under the new rules, any property improvements or developments deemed beneficial to the wider neighborhood could be authorized without direct landowner consent, provided a certain number of stakeholder approvals were obtained. I knew enough about legal games to recognize what was happening. They were building a back door into my land, rewriting the rules while pretending it was all above board. I hired a lawyer from Elmwood, a sharp old cowboy who'd seen every dirty trick in the book. He filed objections, demanded public hearings, and challenged the procedural notices. But every time he made progress, the HOA shuffled the deck. They scheduled meetings at impossible hours, posted agendas on bulletin boards no one visited, issued new notices in tiny print buried in classified ads no one read. It was a war fought in fine print and footnotes, and no matter how fast we chased them, they stayed one step ahead, slipping through loopholes they had written themselves. Still, I fought. Every morning, I walked the fence lines, checking for new survey markers, pulling down unauthorized signs, documenting every intrusion with my old Nikon camera. It became a ritual, a form of resistance, a way of saying, not yet. Not today. Not without a fight. In the middle of all this, life threw me a curveball I could not ignore. My brother was getting married in Montana, and I was asked to be his best man. Family being family, I couldn't say no. I made sure to leave clear instructions for my neighbor Earl, a tough old rancher who agreed to keep an eye on things while I was gone. I locked every gate, put up fresh no trespassing signs, and prayed that 2 weeks away wouldn't bring disaster. I was wrong. The moment I pulled back into the gravel drive, I knew something was off. The air smelled different, like new concrete and cheap paint. The birds were gone. The lazy hum of crickets was replaced by the distant whine of machinery. I rounded the bend and slammed the brakes so hard the truck skidded. Where there had been open pasture, there was now a concrete foundation stretching across the landscape like a scar. Steel beams stabbed into the sky, wrapped in plastic tarps bearing the words Willow Bend Resort Spa. A construction crane loomed over my cottonwoods, their branches hacked back to make room for the access road that now snaked right through the middle of the old hayfield. Bulldozers had ripped out the old fences, their skeletal remains piled in sad heaps along the creek bank. The creek itself had been choked and rerouted, forced into a sterile concrete culvert that looked more like a drainage ditch than a living thing. A young man in a hard hat approached my truck, clipboard in hand, a smile too wide to be sincere. "Morning, sir," he chirped, ignoring the fact that my fists were clenched wide around the steering wheel. "Homeowners will be notified of community benefits shortly." I didn't say a word. I just stared at him, at the absurd bright orange vest stretched over his scrawny chest, at the stupid laminated badge swinging from his neck that said Development Liaison. Finally, I threw the truck into reverse, backing away slowly, not trusting myself to speak without putting my fist through his clipboard. Inside the house, I found a stack of mail shoved through the slot, all bearing the same cheery gold seal. Notice of enhancement commencement. Updated community development map. Invitation to grand opening ceremony. Not a single one offering me a choice. Not a single one asking permission. Earl showed up that evening, hat in hand, looking more rattled than I had ever seen him. He told me they came with bulldozers and trucks 3 days after I left, armed with court papers stamped and signed. They claimed it was all legal, that the town council had authorized it under the new zoning regulations. When Earl tried to intervene, they threatened him with trespassing charges. He tried calling me, but the calls never got through. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No voicemails. Later, I would learn my service had been mysteriously interrupted for the entire duration of my trip. I sat on the porch that night, staring out at the blinking construction lights that dotted the ruins of my home like a sick parody of stars. Somewhere across the valley, a generator droned like a dying animal. I thought about my grandfather, about the calloused hands that had turned this land from wild scrub into something worth fighting for. About the quiet mornings when the mist would rise off the creek and the world felt clean and unbreakable. And I thought about what they had taken from me. The land was not just gone. It had been stolen piece by piece, loophole by loophole, under cover of lies and half-truths. They thought I was beaten, that I would pack up and leave like so many others before me, that I would fold quietly, just another casualty of progress. They thought wrong. The next few weeks were not about rebuilding. They were about surviving.